So in a recent video, I was talking about how I added depth masks to mask logic, you know, the action set that I created for masking and Boolean intersections and everything else. I made a video just saying, hey, I've added depth mask using Adobe Photoshop's neural filters, and you can export depth masks from it. And a lot of people said, hey, that's neat. But then some people said, what the hell is a depth mask? And so I've had some conversations back and forth with some people, and I just wanted to make sure that I was clear, or maybe just kind of help out instead of taking things for granted. I want to see how I can help you guys out talking about depth masks and why they might be cool. I mean, first of all, they're AI based. All right. So it uses a little bit of fuzzy AI. I call it fuzzy because it's clearly not super accurate, but it tries to interpret a scene and then determine where depth might be. Right. And that's not just based on camera blur. It's based on some kind of inferences that the AI system get. But the first thing I want to show people is, if you want to make a depth mask for some purpose, you got to think about, well, when is it actually needed? And when could it actually be more beneficial than another kind of mask? So that's the first thing I want to mention. And these two images here in the top left, these two verticals, okay? These are depth masks created by Photoshop, you know, running my action that pops them up automatically into your channels. This is already created by Photoshop, but look at them very carefully for a second, okay? It is almost a subject selection. Yeah, you have some variation on the floor, sure, but it's almost a subject selection, right? This one, basically a subject selection with a minor variant, okay? So what do these images look like? Well, if we look at both of them, let's go ahead and just kind of put them to the foreground here. If you look at them, you'll see that one has a lot of depth in it because of the blurred mountain background, and the other one has basically no depth in it. But you notice that the AI still said, there's some separation here of some form. It's not just looking for camera blur. That's what I want to make clear first of all. This has a ton of camera blur and it separates the subject. This one has almost no camera blur and it separates the subject. So why do I bring these up? Because if you need to control the background versus the subject on these kind of shots, you're probably better off just using a subject mask. A depth mask won't hurt you, but it's probably better to use a subject mask depending on what you're trying to accomplish. These things don't matter that much. And I also say most of the things that we're going to do with a depth mask should be done very subtly. Okay, when you start doing really heavy-handed things with the depth mask, or if you're using the neural filter itself and you're in that interface, a subtle hand is much more successful 99% of the time. So let's look at these other shots now. Okay, let's look at this shot right here, for example. If we look at the actual shot itself, there's all kinds of depth, right? And of course, the way the AI brain thinks on the depth mask creation in Photoshop, it looks at it like, okay, there's something here in the foreground. This beam is in the foreground. So in this case, this is the inverse of what Photoshop exports. So usually it focuses on the background. But as you can see, the white showing the foreground means that it recognizes that this is up front. This is more in the foreground. The subject happens to be somewhere in the middle, hence gray, and then black in the background, and all kinds of grays in between. That is the AI recognizing that there's something happening here with multiple levels of depth. What can you do with that? Well, who knows? Okay, we're going to get back to that image in a minute because it's very specific about something. Here's another one. Okay, you can see the black and the white means that there's, according to the AI, there's a lot of difference between the subject and whatever that is to camera left. Let's take a look. Okay, it recognizes that there is a lot of depth here. Okay, again, we have some blurry elements up front. Somehow it interpreted her as quote unquote closer than the leaves up front. That's just the AI again. The leaves up front are clearly closer. The human brain knows that, but it creates a separation. Yeah, this was a 135mm shot at f2, so all the depth of field effects possible. But nonetheless, you see how it works better, or rather it has a more dynamic mask when you actually have depth, when you actually have layers and things of that nature. Okay, another shot here, and yes, there's a lot of sort of, for lack of a better term, nature shots that I've done here. Here's another one, clearly subject in the middle, some kind of deep background to camera right. And what is it? Sure enough, it recognizes that. So I don't know exactly what it's doing, but it's looking at objects, and it's also recognizing camera blur and putting all this together and coming up with these kind of results. This is the kind of depth map that would be very useful. If I did a sharpening effect with that mask, for example, I would be sharpening her quite a bit, the trees a little bit, and the bush back here, not really bush, but the leaves and other foliage back there, just a hair, a little bit of sharpening. And that blending of sharpening really adds a nice effect, especially when you print, if you're smart about it and you don't get too crazy, right? So there's a lot of actual depth there. Here, yes, another shot here. I mean, this one was Jamaica, this one's the rainforest in Puerto Rico, and this one happens to be Hawaii. All right, but you can see we have depth. It recognizes, of course, that the tree limb and the subject is all kind of in the foreground, and then black is in the background. So again, just to repeat, even though this rocks and these waterfalls and everything is significantly behind Suki, it still recognizes that there's a difference just as much as this white wall behind Bree. So it's not literally doing any type of actual calculation. It can't. It's an AI system that says what is closer, what is further. I'm going to make a decision on it and then output something relatively accurate, as you can see. There's another situation where blurring would be great. If you inverted that mask, okay, then you could make a nice haze behind her without affecting her too much. Don't forget, you can always hit Command L at any point while looking at these channels, okay, and you can like darken to make her less obvious in the background, will be more selected clearly with her not selected clearly. This is just, sort of masking 101 there, okay? But other elements too, here we are in the rural Amargosa sand dunes between Nevada and California. And as you can see, there's depth and stuff going on here, and it interprets it fairly well. Some of this banding is just the nature of what it's doing. I do not understand why the banding is there. I've experimented with 8 and 16-bit. That's just an Adobe thing. I'm sure this will advance, don't get me wrong. But as you can see, there's some possibility here of multiple depth, sort of. Because really, to me, it's foreground, subject, and then sand dune. So these variations don't make that much of a difference. So that one lives sort of in between these two very clear shots where it's a subject selection and maybe these other ones, okay? This one here, this is in, where is this, Miami? And as you can see, it recognizes multiple layers here. This would also be cool if we're adding color in a different way, adding color just to her in some way, and then the rocks a little bit less. I don't know. Who knows what you can do with a mask like this? Of course, the background's also possible as well. You get what I'm saying. So that's the first sort of lesson that I want to mention now, is that when you're dealing with a depth mask, or you're thinking to yourself, how can a depth mask help me here? Well, let's not lead with the technology. Let's not lead with the mask. What do we want? What are we trying to accomplish? And there's so many different ways that we can go about trying to determine that. What's the goal here, right? On these shots here, the top two left ones, like I said, those are just subject selections, to be honest. But if we look at something like this, let's look at this, a Bree in Puerto Rico, okay? If we look at, oops, didn't mean to do that, okay? If we look at the shot here and then go to our mask, let's invert it because we want to capture the background, okay? I'm going to hit, again, levels. I'm going to Command L. I can modify the channel, or I can modify the mask once I apply it. I'm going to modify the channel, okay? So I'm going to darken her a little bit using the black eyedropper tool. Now she's completely separated. And I'm going to go ahead and brighten the background to maximum white. Something like that. Okay, cool. So I have some layers there. See, I've increased the contrast is what I've done. So I have some layers happening here, but still pretty intense, okay? So now I'm going to hold down Command or Control, click that actual channel, go back to the RGB. Okay, well, now what? I don't know. Let's go to our layers. Let's make a new layer. Let's put a mask on it. Cool. And then now on that layer, let's go ahead and, I don't know, I'm going to put a white puffball, as I like to call it, behind her. This is a very common thing for some effects. I don't know why I'm in color blend mode. Let's put it on normal and go. Boom. Okay. Is that real looking? Absolutely not. However, there's some things we can do. Let's say we put it on soft light, put it on overlay. Overlay is a little sunnier looking, right? That's kind of cool. We can go to our mask, hold on Alt or Option. There's our mask. We can go to the mask properties and we can blur a little bit. We have to be mindful here because it's going to start looking like weird banding, but it just creates a glow around her. And that creates a nice, beautiful look. If we hold down Shift and click the mask, this is what it looked like normally with the puffball. This is what it looks like with the puffball, and a nice, beautiful mask created by a depth mask. Now, keep in mind that if this thing was even larger, this is the glow I'm modifying, okay? Let's say I make it really big. Something like that, okay? As you can see, it's still accounting for the multiple layers of depth. So this tree, didn't need to do that either. This tree is a little bit up front, right? If I hold down Shift, you'll see the difference. Ruined. Here, it's blending everything nice. Multiple layers. And here again, if I took the feather all the way down, you can see how it's a little more direct. But if we find a nice balance of our feather, we can create a little glow around her. And then probably opacity, maybe 70%, 75% from there to there. Those multiple layers, you cannot do necessarily very easily with a subject selection. This is why it's important that we do that. Keep in mind the opposite is also true. Let's go ahead and create like a curves. In other words, I was brightening, put on luminosity blend mode. Let's go ahead and drag this mask over to it. Okay, hold down Alt or Option. Yes, we want to replace it. Okay, and now we can go to curves and we can darken the background if we need to. Something like that. Change the opacity there. And now we've kind of brought her and the foreground elements up front because we're using, again, a very smart mask. We can take that down, the feathering down. We want to make a little bit of a harder edge because it's not going to be as obvious as the glow. Okay, and we can make that even 50%. A way to bring the background down in a blended way because we're using a depth mask. Okay, and this, guys, these are just a couple of different things you can do with a depth mask. Sharpening, like I said, is one of my favorites because you can sharpen things that are in the foreground or not. Now, sometimes, I told you I was going to go back to this image. Sometimes it does great with the AI, but it also says, hey, this is the most foreground thing, the right part here, this area at the camera right, which is this metal beam. And if you want to use it for sharpening, that's not true. The foreground right here where this beam comes near the camera is blurred, right? But it says, well, that's closer. So the AI determined that that is closer to the camera. That's true. However, it doesn't necessarily help you with sharpening. So sometimes it'll fail like that. It's not the end of the world. It'll fail like that. But there's a couple things you can do. So let's go ahead and apply it. So we're going to hold down Command and Control, click the actual channel itself, go back to RGB. And then now let's go ahead and, I don't know, duplicate that. If we look at it, we see what it's selected, right? Including the transparency, the alpha transparency. So she is halfway selected and the blurry area is in fact heavily selected. That doesn't benefit us as much by duplicating the subject and then sharpening, which is a normal thing that I do when I need to sharpen kind of quickly. So instead, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate the background layer. I'm going to go ahead and run. Let's just do a high pass sharpening on it because we can. Okay. So two high pass, radius, hard light. Okay. Blend mode, and now we have sharpened. Beautiful. We sharpened everything, including the blurry area, so all we done is add noise in there. It doesn't help us. So we come down here, back to our channel, hold down Command and Control. You don't have to view the channel to do it. Just click it, go back to RGB, and then now we mask that. But here's the thing. We're masking her, but not as much as this. So a couple of things we can do very quickly while we're on this channel. Command L, choose the white eyedropper tool to make sure she's super sharp. Choose the black eyedropper tool to get some of that background to go away. Maybe something like that, okay? And then we need to visualize this, so we're going to go back to the normal view. I would personally paint with black like this, and then just very casual, nice soft brush, paint out the blurry area. Okay, oops, I hit a button again, put it on subtract. You can tell I'm working with a new computer, can't you guys? All right, now we paint it black, and there we go. And now we have a mask that's basically doing this. We can also paint it in here if we want. And now we're sharpening only her, which is again similar to a subject mask, but we modified it a little bit, so there's a little bit of sharpening happening sort of in some other elements here and there. That's one purpose of a depth mask. And again, that gradient, if you want to call it that, of sharpening can be very, very useful for you depending on what you're trying to do. So let's go, for example, this shot real quick. Okay, this shot isn't particularly sharp because I was shooting kind of quickly. It's a little bit blurred as it is, so it's sort of noisy. Okay, but we can duplicate. We can go to high pass. Let's put it really high so you guys can see on 3. We'll put it in hard light blend mode, turn it off a second, go to our channel, select the channel, come back, and mask. And now we're sharpening her, a little bit of this foreground, which doesn't need to be sharpened, right? And it's blending otherwise. Now, sometimes that can be a cool look rather than have this stark sharpening only on the subject. It blends everywhere else. And that's not as big when you're looking on the computer or Instagram at this size. It doesn't look that different. But when you print an image that you've sharpened, if you've done it right, then that can make a big difference. We have that doesn't have that stark sharpened subject. It has everything blending quite nice because you have, again, a depth mask. So guys, these are just some thoughts. I'm curious as to how you guys use depth mask. There are all kinds of cool technical utility reasons to use depth mask. Don't get me wrong. Certainly in the compositing space and animation space, depth masks have a lot of use beyond Photoshop's little beta. And I know there's other applications and other third-party things that do a lot better with depth masks. But what I need them for, the neural filter output works great. My actions here on Mask Logic, you know, they can create them automatically, and then you can do Boolean mixing and intersecting with them if you need to. To me, masking is hugely important for corrective, but also for creative reasons as well. So that's just a little bit of what I use depth masks for. I think they're kind of cool. I think they're very cool, to be honest, but they're not a end-all, be-all by themselves. Just keep that in mind while you're working with a shot. If you have a shot like this, and you make a depth mask, you might as well have done a subject mask. Keep that in mind. Depth is really useful when you have reasons for depth, multiple layers.